as well. Okay. Am I now? I can still hear myself twice. But I think it's here. Eh? Wait. Hello? Hello? Yeah. So are we now? It's still here.
I muted it.
Yeah, that one is on. Unless, is it not here? Not record. No. Where are those speakers? Yes, those ones.
Speak again.
Hello? Hello? Yes, it was those ones. All right, perfect. At least I know something about tech. All right. So am I live now? Fantastic. Good evening, team in the house and online. How are you guys?
Hi, Freddy.
How are you guys? Jeepers, that was a welcome of note.
Hello,
Thank you.
Hello.
I'm even turning red. Right. What are we doing today? Task C. Have we watched the screencast, the feedback? Not the feedback, the reflection, sorry. Not yet.
Yes.
It was very long.
We did.
It was compared to the other ones. I teach. Yeah, it was. I was also surprised. I was like, why did this thing take me an hour? I hope I wasn't waffling. But I think this is one of those tasks that really I usually have to stand back and say, actually, what is being triggered here as part of the pre-release? Because they're talking about my favorite topic, internal controls. I see people are shaking their heads. Yeah, so I need to understand exactly what is being triggered, because I know internal controls consistently have been coming up in the SAICA APC, and we've consistently been getting a 6 to 14% pass rate in internal controls. So guys, if you do not understand internal controls, you've got to make it work in this remaining 3 weeks. You've got to make sure. Is it 3 weeks? It's now 2. Yeah, it's now 2 weeks. In this 2 weeks, you've got to be specialists in internal controls. So hence it took me long to really unpack the pre-release. I think I came up with the fact that they're triggering internal controls as far as revenue is concerned. That's number one. Secondly, they are triggering, and for you to really do well in that internal controls of revenue, you've got to have a full understanding of the business model of this company. You've got to understand exactly how Fodjan is making money. So what are the different revenue streams, and how do they get recorded in the financial statements ultimately? What systems are being used? How does the information start from the beginning all the way to the end? That's number one. Number two that they triggered was the data analytics to say, are there any ways that we can use data, big data, and analyze it in such a way that we make sure that we are reporting or the franchisees are reporting appropriate amount of revenue, complete and occurred and accurate revenue, because we base a percentage of our revenue on the revenue reported by the franchisees. And that was quite, I just always find data and analytics not as something that I'm 100% comfortable with. I always spend my time on it, but I mean, because I was born before 2000, so this data analytics, AI, are not things that come naturally to me. You know, I've got to work hard at it. And hence, I'm sure you would have seen, for those who watch the reflection, the extent of work that I would anticipate that one needs to do. What else did I indicate that it was a third element that was triggered in this task? Controls, data analytics. What was the third? There were 3 areas. Oh yes, the CATs, the automated tools as well that can be used in this section to evaluate, because they said the auditors are actually thinking of being efficient and effective in their audit, and they're going to automate their audits. So you really needed to look at the CATs and make sure that you are comfortable with that area as well. So really, a lot of work you needed to have spent. But I mean, if you already understand internal controls, it was not going to be a lot of work. You need to make sure you understand your internal controls. And I'm gonna take the question just shortly. And I mean, if you are an EPC candidate, you know from case study number 1, we test your internal controls all the way to the end, because we know very well that we will not certify anyone who does not understand internal controls, because it's something that, whether you're going to end up in an audit profession or as part of management, it's a key risk management activity that you need to make sure of. And for those who are at EPC for 2023, you might have made a link to see that actually our first case study, Better Pick, Task B, data analytics and internal controls, was actually inspired by SAICA APC 2022. Let me take the 2 questions around the reflection, just in terms of the PRI and making sure that you are comfortable with those areas. One in the room first. Yeah, maybe just wait for the.
Yeah, thanks. In the reflection video, you mentioned
I still can't hear you. Is the mic on? Or only for the camera, for the video, for
Yes.
the Teams online? Yes, yes.
So I just wanted to know, in the reflection video, you made reference to a 4-hour internal control video.
Oh yes,
yes, you did. So I want to find out, because I was looking through the CTA videos and I couldn't find that video. So I just wanted to find out where exactly that is.
Yes, it must be under CPD, hey? Under CPD. So I will just ask one of the online team members to assist in terms of where you can find it. Whoever is hearing me, please just direct us to. Yes, there is a 4-hour video that we created where we really unpack controls, and I always encourage candidates to go through it. Please, guys, if you haven't gone through it, do so. And if you've gone through it, it's always important to go through it again, and not during the 5-day pre-release. If you're going to use 4 hours to go through it during 5-day pre-release, you're wasting your time. You need to go through it now. You get what I'm saying? Cool, thank you. I see there's another hand online. Who is here? Kanye. Go for it. Do you have a question on the reflection and the PRI before I move into the IOD?
Hi, Fodjan. No, I don't know if you're referring to me, but my hand is not up unless I was a mistake.
Oh, it was up actually. Thank you though. Thank you for clarifying. Fantastic. So let's move. Now, then you confidently, without a weave, as they said, walk into the assessment and you find task C. And when you get to task C, again, the email is coming from Elijah Molabe, the financial manager, and they talk about the incomplete reporting of sales by the franchisees. How like the start of an email, it sounds like those UK emails that they don't even have a hi, you know, like it's a bit abrupt. And I mean, the nice Fedi always gets taken aback when someone doesn't say hi on an email, unless we've been chatting, of course. Then I think maybe Elijah is saying we've been chatting since 7 o'clock in the morning, so why should I say hi again? But anyway, my email of the 8:45 a.m. on 9 December has reference. I previously pointed out that there has been a sizable increase in franchise fees and marketing fund contributions from the prior financial year. However, upon further reflection, I'm more concerned that we are in fact under invoicing these amounts based on understated franchise restaurant sales figures. Boom, boom. That's exactly a key issue now. Remember when we were in the PRI, it looked like franchise fees, they were worried about franchise fees, or franchise revenue not being correctly invoiced. What does correctly invoiced mean? It could be inaccurate. It could be incomplete. It could be over. Are you with me? Both overstatement, understatement, inaccurate, it was that. But now they are ring-fencing us. They are narrowing us down to under invoicing. So what are we talking about here? Under invoicing. What are the two assertions that talks to under invoicing? Is it occurrence of revenue? Under invoicing. Is it occurrence of revenue? No. Occurrence is more over invoicing. Are you with me? You're invoicing things that do not exist, that have not occurred. Are you with me? So now all those assertions that we were looking at, they're actually narrowing us to two. So it's completeness and accuracy. Okay? Completeness and accuracy, meaning you are invoicing 0 when you should be invoicing, or you are invoicing 10 when you should be invoicing 12. Do you get what I'm saying? That will result in understated amounts of franchisee restaurant revenue, which then when we apply our percentage to it, then we are getting to a lower franchise fee rather than what it should be. This concern stems from the fact that the franchisees benefit financially from understating the sales made by their restaurant. Of course, if the franchisees understate the revenue, their revenue, then they're going to have to pay us a lower franchise fee, which will benefit them. Okay, so there is an incentive. There is an incentive from the franchisees to underestimate or to understate the franchise revenue. There is an incentive, guys. Wow, that sounds like one of the fraud triangles. Incentive. Do you guys agree? ISA 240, when we're looking at fraudulent financial reporting and we're looking at fraud risk factors, incentive is one of them. So we are actually saying this could be fraudulently done by the franchisees to underestimate this. I doubt whether any I doubt whether any understatement of sales is due to the incorrect pricing of menu items. I wonder, why do you say this? The pricing of orders placed by customers at Fodjan's restaurant is done by the point of sale software using the prices contained in the product master file. Whenever Fodjan changes its menus, representatives of Fodjan visit each restaurant and uploads the new product master file. Only the Fodjan representatives has the access rights to this function. So basically, they are telling you that the understatement of the franchisee revenue will not arise from pricing issues, because pricing is centrally controlled and the restaurants do not have any rights to access and make any changes to the prices. Even if there are changes to the menu and prices, there is someone that is centrally assigned who comes with their own passwords, etc., to come and change things at the restaurants, at the Fodjas, at the franchisees. So it's actually telling you whatever we're going to do not focus your attention on the pricing issues. All right. Then from here on, we get to the actual task that is in purple. Accordingly, I would appreciate your advice on the following two things. So then that tells us we've got two components to the task. Guys, we've got two components to this task. Number one, the various ways in which franchisees may be able to understate the sales figures of their restaurants. And number two, how we can analyze the franchised restaurant sales data, as well as any other relevant data that can reasonably be derived from our information system to identify restaurants whose sales figures appear to be understated. This will allow us to initiate closer monitoring of these restaurants. Wow, this is one of the best well-written tasks I've ever seen, where you are not trying to pull things together. It's there. Then immediately you can go and create your structure. If it usually takes you 3 minutes to create your structure, this time it will take you a minute, because all what you're doing is say, hi, Elijah. Thanks for the opportunity, but I have done the following. Number one, outlined the various ways in which franchisees may be able to understate the sales figures in their restaurant. Number two, I've outlined how we can analyze the franchised restaurant sales data, as well as any other relevant data that can reasonably be derived from our information system. If you've got any further question, let me know. Regards. Is it financial manager, hey? Not your name. Do you remember that? Yes, not your name. So listen to us. We finished the structure and planning for the task and know exactly how many components within 30 seconds. But there's still certain things we need to read. I guess the other thing that they say we must do, or if necessary and due to the risk involved, I'm willing to contract a software developer to come and upgrade our stuff so that we can generate more data from the system. So do not be limited. Critically think about all the funky ways that we can analyze data in this organization. I would like to avoid imposing an audit requirement as well. So meaning do not come and suggest that we instead of analyzing data, do not come and suggest that we go to all the 96 franchisees. Do you guys see? I still remember how many franchisees we have. We're not going to go to all 96 and go and audit them and make sure that the revenue that is in the system that reporting to us is exactly what is sitting in the systems. But I've attached my summary of the system we have in place to track franchised restaurants sales. Where is this going to be useful? Why is this important? Why do I have to know a summary of the system? I'm not sure if online there is any hand up, but in the room, I'm not seeing any hands up. I think they're very shy in the room. I wonder why. But online, I'm not also seeing hands up, but maybe let me check. Yes, ma'am. The mic is just coming in the room.
Do you mind please repeating the question again?
Sorry, go for it.
Do you mind please repeating the question?
Repeating the question.
Yes.
So I'm saying they're also giving, if you look at the last statement, they're also giving a summary of the system that they have in place to track franchised restaurant. Why are they giving that to you?
Okay, so we've been told basically that the way in which the revenue is being recognized is through system.
Yeah, the point of
operation.
sales
Yes.
system. Yeah.
So if you're thinking about how they could possibly manipulate their revenue, you would need to know what kind of system they have in place, how that system operates in terms of their revenue, to see if there are any weaknesses or any points that could potentially, yes, yeah, what are the risks that could possibly be identified from this?
And then you become my student. Okay, so exactly that point, the last point, and this is to respond to which component of the task, the first point or the second? Is the first, eh? Yes, the first. Yes, the first point is how the franchisees could manipulate the franchise revenue. Okay, so and I was listening to you very attentively when you were saying we're going to use this information. We need to understand the system, how it works, to enable us to identify areas where the franchisees could manipulate the revenue. Okay, and then you used two additional words. The first one I did not like at all. The first words that you used, you said to identify weaknesses in the system. That's not the task. The weaknesses in the system, do you guys agree? The weaknesses in the system, they will generally create errors and yes, could be taken advantage of. But that's not the task. The second word that you used, you hit it on the nail, the risk points, the risks in the system. Because remember, they may give you a perfect system. Do you guys agree with me? But the perfect system still has risks, but it doesn't have weaknesses. Do you remember that from CTA? What is a weakness and what is a risk? So, and I saw someone in the chat box saying, we're going to be looking for what could go wrong, not what has gone wrong. Are you guys with me? It does not necessarily have gone wrong. Okay. It could have gone, it could be subjected to going wrong. Okay. So it's very important for you, when you're now going to go to this system, you understand that very clearly. Okay, let's do it. So it means as we're reading this attachment, then we need to be asking ourselves, what could go wrong? And I want to see you guys now, especially the online guys, now typing in the chat box. Where's that click? Typing in the chat box as to what actually could go wrong. Okay, and how franchisees could then manipulate the profit, the franchise revenue. Okay, let's go for it. So we're gonna read something. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. So as we read, so we start by saying, the system starts by saying the point of sale software system is used not only to manage customers' food orders in restaurants and the processing of the accompanying payments, but also to keep a detailed record of all sales transactions for reporting and data analysis purposes. Sales transactions records are stored on the point of sale software system at the restaurant and automatically uploaded on the cloud-based software, cloud-based storage service on a daily basis. This is done not only to serve as a backup of the data for the franchisee, but in accordance with the franchise agreement to allow Fodjan read access to this data, and if necessary, to verify the sales data reported by the franchisee. At the end of every month, all Fodjan franchisees have to complete a monthly trading report for each of their Fodder's restaurants. These reports contain information about key metrics for each restaurant, such as net sales, gross, less adjustments and VAT, purchases, inventory, opening and closing, and salaries. Before we start, now remember, now you need to get into the mode of responding to the task, the first component of the task, as to how franchisees could manipulate this revenue, how franchisees could manipulate this revenue. Overarching comment, how could they? Obviously, they precluded pricing. Do you guys remember? So we're not going to say pricing. Overall, without even looking at the system elements or parts of the system, how could they? Quantity. Okay, got you. So basically what you're saying to me is that the revenue could be manipulated by underreporting the revenue. Okay, under or incomplete reporting of revenue. So now we're going to look at using the following risk points. Do you agree with me? So that becomes your overarching statement to they could underreport the quantity and or underreport the quantity or underreport the quantity or incomplete reporting of the quantity of the items sold. So where could it go wrong? How could they do that? How could they do that? I've given you 3 points that were sitting in the system because I just want you guys to tell me. I'm seeing people in the chat box have started in terms of indicating exactly where it could go wrong. Okay, think about it, note it down. I'm not going to ask you to tell me. I want you to take it down. But this is how Fedi would have then approached it. I'm a very line by line kind of a guy. I told you this before, okay? I want to know where it could go wrong at each level of the process. So the first bullet point is actually telling me that this point of sale software system is used for various things, processing of the accompanying payments, but also to keep a detailed record of all sales transactions. The fact that this is keeping a detailed record of all sales transactions, I'm already thinking of 2 things. The system could be manipulated in a number of ways. Firstly, I've learned about the fact that whatever goes into the system needs to be accurate, input risk. Do you guys agree with me? Whatever goes into the system needs to be accurate and complete. Meaning I'm worried about input risk, but how am I going to word it? It's just a thought that's coming to my mind. Also, they say the system keeps a detailed record of sales transaction. Well, if they go in correctly, meaning I've addressed input risk, are you with me? Does it mean then it will be accurate and complete the whole time because it went in complete and accurate? No. What becomes the next risk? What becomes the next risk? Integrity risk. Whilst it's being kept in there, there's no risk of someone coming and manipulating it whilst it was accurate to start with, whilst it's sitting in there. Okay, but sitting in where? Is it in the app? Is it in this application called the point of sale software system? Or there's a database? Because remember, if you learned about your internal controls, the IT ones, you would understand that they are at 4 layers. We're not talking about Windows here. We're not talking about at an operating system level. We're talking about at the point of sale software system. Are you with me? But if you look at the second bullet point, it's also talking to you to say it goes into the point of sale system, which is the application. And then after that, it automatically gets uploaded and gets stored in this thing called a cloud-based storage. Oh my God, that is the database. Are you with me? Okay, so I'm worried about 2 elements here. I'm worried about the front end of the application. It's like going into WhatsApp. Are you with me? It's like typing, you want to type a message to WhatsApp. You open an app called WhatsApp, okay? Things could go wrong. And that data sits in that WhatsApp for a time being until it automatically gets transferred and stored on a daily basis into this database. We always call it a warehouse. It's like that's where it's going to reside for more than 365 days. Are you with me? But it gets stored initially in the application for a day, and at the end of the day, automatically gets transferred to the database. Then I'm worried about 2 things. The complete and accurate transfer between the app and now going to the warehouse, the database. Are you with me? How do I know that all the data that is going into the point of sale system ultimately gets transferred completely and accurately into this storage device, into the storage, cloud-based storage? And once it also then reaches this cloud-based storage, how do I know that there are adequate controls around these things? So basically, what controls are we talking about? How could then the franchisee manipulate this? They could manipulate this, number 1, by not inputting the correct things. Number 2, by going, once it's accurate, it's in, by going in and manipulating the data that is either in the app, whereas meaning within the day, or manipulating it, or making sure or ensuring that the transfer is not complete and accurate into the storage, or going directly into the storage and going there and manipulating it. Do you guys agree with me? It could be at each of those points. And now you're talking, now you're responding how the franchisees could, and you're giving us this reasons for every statement that you are making. And this is done not only. Yes, just give me a second.
Okay.
Is it online?
Yes.
Okay. Give me a second. I just want to make sure that I've gotten all my thoughts. This is done not only to serve as a backup of the data for the franchisee, but in accordance with the franchise agreement to allow Fodjan read access to this data. That also is telling me the read access, the fact that Fodjan has got read access, it's telling me that actually the franchisees knows that you can see this data. So what is the risk? The risk is the fact that they are unlikely to go and report to you revenue that they know is different to the revenue that's sitting in the database because they know you've got access to it. You're going to go and verify against it. So they must manipulate it whilst it's on the way or once it's in there before you can compare. That ultimately what you're going to see in the database is more likely what they're going to report, because they're telling me that there is this monthly trading report that they are that the franchisees are asked to send to the franchisor, and it contains the following. And then on this bullet point, I'm like, the net sales. I mean, gross sales are what they are. We spoke about the fact that that is an input risk. Is all the inputs that are going in there except for price, because price is not an issue, is not going to be an issue. Is it complete and is it accurate? But there's less adjustments. The auditor in me hates that word. Do you guys agree? That tells me that is a risk point, because adjustments, it means they can over adjust to understate this revenue. Do you guys agree with me? Hello? Okay. And then there's VAT. Well, unless they get it wrong, I mean, it's 15%. Purchases, inventory, salaries. I'm not seeing further risk points. My guy online, you had a question. Who was it?
Yes. Sorry for interjecting there.
No, don't worry. Time? Is it time or is it Gumbo?
Yes, it's time. It's Gumbo as well. Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. I wanted to know. We are all acknowledging that these guys could manipulate the data in the databases. So why are we discounting the price side of it to say the price cannot be adjusted? Yes, I do acknowledge that there is a point that where we read that Fodjan changes its menus. When Fodjan changes its menus, a representative of Fodjan visits each restaurant and uploads the new product master file. Are we saying that the master file cannot be manipulated, maybe from the franchisee's side? I'm thinking it's not something conceivable that a master file cannot be manipulated. I just want to understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good question. And maybe for clarity, because you are raising a valid point to make sure we get our language right. So absolutely, the master file prices are not subject to manipulation, the master file. However, once the prices that are being used have been multiplied with the quantities, when it's a revenue transaction, meaning it's a sale that has been made, are you with me? That sale, it will get parked in the POS system for like a day until the evening, and that sale transaction will be transferred into the cloud, cloud-based storage and that database. So the manipulation could happen at that level, at those two levels, meaning in the app and in the database. But the manipulation is no longer now for the price. It's the manipulation of the data. So if, for instance, I purchased 2 burgers, okay, and the 2 burgers are 50 Rand each, all right? So it's impossible. Well, I can't say impossible. I'm an auditor, right? What should I say? There's limited risk, or there's a reduced risk of manipulating the 50, because the 50 is going to come from the data, the master file. The 50 is going to come from the master file, and no one has access to that master file. Multiplied by 2, the 2 could have been manipulated, could have been manipulated as an input risk, meaning 3 odd baggers have been purchased, but they make it 2. Okay, now we've got 2 multiplied by 50. That becomes a sales transaction, which is 100 Rand. And that 100 Rand is going to sit in the point of sale system. And that 100 Rand is the one that can be manipulated. Or when it gets into the database, the 100 can be manipulated. We're no longer talking about the price to it, because it's no longer P times Q. It's already the product of the 2. It's now a transaction. Okay. Time, have I answered your question sufficiently?
I'm the APC.
Thank you. There are 2 questions in the room.
Just as a follow-up question to the online question.
Yeah.
They spoke about the loyalty points somewhere at the beginning of the scenario.
Yeah.
Where they said you can get a discount. So wouldn't that also now start affecting the price on how we can manipulate it? Because you can easily overstate the loyalty points per se. I don't know if my question makes sense.
Yes, but I think now at this point, they haven't introduced the customer loyalty program. So it's still a proposal, remember? If I remember correctly. Yeah. Yes. I was just trying to align it to the other task. Yes, it's still a proposal. So, but absolutely. And I want you to hang on to that thought about the customer loyalty program, because it's going to be very useful when we get to the data. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
With regards to the price, I just want to know if we shouldn't consider, for example, price overrides. So, for example, if they make a promotion, it often happens, they make a promotion, they say it's supposed to be 40 Rand, but you get to the store and it's 50 Rand, but you're supposed to give the customer at that 40 Rand price.
But they don't have access to override.
So in that case, then, okay.
Yeah.
So we should assume that.
No, it's not an assumption, it's a fact. They told us. They told us here, remember? Must I go back there just to clarify?
Okay.
They told us here that, no, is it here or is it in the previous? Yes. I doubt whether any understatement is due to incorrect pricing of menu items. The pricing of orders placed by customers is done by the software using the prices contained in the master file, and no one has access to the master file.
Okay, would it then maybe come within your adjustments?
Sorry?
Your adjustment, because
correct. So if let's say someone has ordered and they're no longer happy with, they're not happy with the quality of their food, you cannot go and reverse the sale. What you do, you create a credit note or an adjustment to the gross. So then now that's why the adjustments are quite risky. Those are your overrides per se, but you're not going to undo the sales. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay. So then those are the number of things that we are seeing, and we're going to go over this again when we are looking at the actual data set. Then upon receipt of this trading reports, which are due no later than 3 days after month end, boom, boom, Fodjan's invoicing clerk captures the net sales figure as reported for each franchise restaurant onto the company's invoice application. You know, when I saw that, I almost collapsed. What is the biggest risk there, guys? Type it in the chat box. I can't hear you. Raise your voice, guys, in the room. Input risk because of what? Human error. Capture in this day and age. I mean, like, I don't understand why we're capturing because the data exists. Do you get what I'm saying? What did you have expected? A review. Well, for me, the review is, it doesn't give me enough comfort. Yes, it will be better because it's a detective control, but the error would have occurred. I hate detective controls. I need strong preventative controls. Do you guys agree? So what would I have expected? I don't want capture. What do I want? Automatic interface. That's my student. Well, Leonard. Okay, so I would have expected there must be an interface from the database at the end of the month. There must be a bridge, a channel that is pulling the data from wherever it's sitting in the cloud-based storage, taking it over into wherever this Slack wants to take it to. It must be an automated interface. Are you with me? That has been configured to completely and accurately transfer that data from that database to wherever they want it to be. So I would not like to see this capturing because, like you guys say, human error and also manipulation could happen at that level. Okay, I guess, like you guys were saying, but if they just manipulate it at that level, they are doing that at a risk of being caught because the database will continue having the real data. And if Fodjan themselves does the comparison between what you are now reporting versus what is sitting in the database, there's going to be this massive difference. And as I read further down, I don't see Fodjan doing that reconciliation of comparing what is sitting in the database and what has been captured. And you guys are saying absolutely right to say, at worst, another control I would expect over this capturing is a second set of eyes, which is a very weak control. Do you guys agree with me? Because people get tired when they review and they just sign it off. Am I making sense? Oh, there's another question. Let me just wait for the
So I
mic.
think unless the system is designed where if it matches, it's green. If it doesn't match, it's red.
The system.
Yes.
Yes, that's an automated control. We like those because they're very preventative in nature. They don't detect, they don't wait for an issue. Okay, and they resolve that, right? Yes.
Another question.
Oh, there's another question. Yes, I actually thought there is a question, but then, yeah, go for it.
I'm
my
just a
lady.
little bit confused. So I do understand that there could be a risk with the manual capturing of the data, but then this data is then reviewed by the CEO.
This what?
The invoices,
Yeah.
right? They're reviewed by the CEO.
Yeah.
And he approves them. So
Yeah.
I thought that would mitigate the risk.
It will reduce the risk. Agreed. But those are the controls that Fedi don't like. The detective controls. Because what if the CFO misses it?
All right. So in terms of this question, were
Yeah.
we also supposed to recommend strong controls?
No.
Okay.
No, you're not. Your job is not to recommend controls. But in your wording, remember, we're going to say this is how it could be manipulated. And then in so doing, you might say, and the CFO might not be able to pick it up. Do you get what I'm saying? You're using the same language, but you're not recommending anything, but you've got the recommendation in your mind and you're using it to respond to the task. So for instance, in my case, I'm saying the fact that there are no interfaces and they're relying on manual capturing, it exposes them to these types of risks or manipulation of data or errors. Do you get what I'm saying? Instead of if it was an automated interface. But no need to and do not start recommending, because then you are going to eat the time. You don't have time to be doing things that they didn't ask you to. Fantastic. Yeah.
I think what made it difficult for me to answer the question was when I read the pre-release, and obviously they mentioned that you procure this IT or the software from a global leading IT group. I automatically assumed that some of the controls would be in place, like management override, like a manager would need to do adjustments and all of those type of stuff. So when I had to answer the question, I couldn't come up with the obvious, because I was thinking,
and that's where we started at. And I like that comment very much so, because it's that thing of saying, are we here to identify weaknesses? Are you with me? In controls. And then if we are there, you might assume that some controls exist to mitigate these things. We are not there. Remember, we are looking at the risk points. What could go wrong? Are you with me? Risk, a risk is inherent in the system, whether there are good controls or not. I would like to see those controls mitigating this risk, but the risk exists. Do you guys get what I'm saying? It was very important for you guys to appreciate that we are not looking at controls that are mitigating these things. We are looking at the risks that could result in what's this? The franchisees manipulating the data. And because in that case, they will override the controls, whether they exist or not. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay. And hence, because I think I stopped at application. I didn't read, I stopped there when I almost fell on my chair or fall off my chair at application. When they said the app then generates the invoice, also using data from the franchisee master file, which is then forwarded together with the monthly trading report to the CEO for review and approval. Then I sat back again. I said, well, that is a control. Do you agree with me? That is addressing the risk. Do you agree with me? But now, the risk of this is that it's a weak control. Why do I say it's a weak control? Can everyone type in the chat box? Why is CFO reviewing these invoices? Why do you guys think it's a weak control? Besides the first fact that we spoke about, that it's a detective control. Detective controls are generally weaker than preventative. That one we've outlined. But what else makes it a weak control and makes this susceptible to risks? Tell me. Let me see if the guys are typing. I see. Just wondering if the CEO is the best person to review the trading reports as opposed to someone like the CFO. I would actually not even think the CFO. Guys, these people don't have time. You know? Oh, did I do something went haywire? What's happening? Okay. Oh, did I move something? Okay, I see. Excuse me, I guess, am I still audible though online? It's just now I need to reshare and make sure.
You are audible.
Am I still audible? Thank you. So where are my slides though? Yeah, the CEO is not the most appropriate person, guys, to be doing this. And because then it makes me then now question the adequacy of the control. And I mean, this thing is I can't see my slides. Reflection deck, eh? No. Show more. Feedback deck. No, man, something is weird. Stop sharing. Let me stop presenting. Sorry? The slides were there. Really? Okay, Mazairishe.
Yes,
Okay.
Feli, we could see them.
But in the room, we can't see them. That's the problem. Feedback deck. Okay. Share desktop. No. No. I might need help because I want to make sure, firstly, that they are here in the room. Let me close this. Okay, while they're sorting me out here, there's a question from, see this first, or hand up from Katlego. Katlego, do you want to go whilst they're sorting my slides out? See, I can't see them here. I wonder where they are. Katlego? What is water and oil, Shumani? So I think what we're saying is, usually this is what we call a management review control. And management review control, it needs to be very precise to actually do the work and meet the objective of the control. So I would have expected that if they're going to rely on the CEO, they better indicate to us exactly what the CEO is looking at. What are they reviewing? Do they have a checklist as they are reviewing that they are abiding by? And are they accepting things or not accepting things? What is the reasonableness threshold that they are willing to accept and not accept? So those things are very, very important. Okay? So it's very important that if they're going to rely on this review control, they do exactly that. Okay. Yes, there is another question in the room.
Is there a risk that the CEO is reviewing incorrect information?
Sorry?
Is there a risk that the CEO is reviewing incorrect information? So he's not
precise enough in their review.
In that, so where he's getting the information from, right? It's coming from the franchisee, the target report or their trading report, which could be inaccurate. So technically, even if he reviews, he's not really detecting or correcting anything because he could be looking at incorrect information.
Yeah, but that's the point of a review, to identify issues in what he's reviewing. So he's reviewing, yes, and he can pick up some issues. Let's say maybe one franchisee's reported very low sales, because remember, they even said he's got an app. He's got an app that he can go and look up the monthly sales in and then do the comparison and see, no, this is too low, or whatever the error is. Yes, when you are reviewing, you are trying to pick up errors or fraud in what you are reviewing, as inaccurate as it is. It's what you are reviewing. Okay. Happy? You think so? When I review a report, the report could be inaccurate, but the point of the review is for me to pick up the inaccuracies in it.
Even
the source data could be incorrect, but the fact that he's got an app that shows the sales of the actual franchisee, he can do that comparison to make sure that
absolutely, and that's the point of the review. You always refer it to something else.
That app that he has, right? It's generating the invoice, but that information is coming from the clerk who manually imports it.
And that's the point. That's my next point that I was going to make. When I was reading this last year, I was like, I'm not sure where the app is taking the data from? Because it says the CEO is able to use an app to look up the total monthly sales for the restaurant. This app has been developed. Download the daily sales data files for each of the franchise restaurants from the cloud-based storage service at the end of every month, and to consolidate this files for each franchised restaurant. So do you see it's pulling it from the cloud-based? So which, technically speaking, if the database is complete and accurate, then it will be the right source to use in the comparison. But I think what we raised before is just that reconciliation that the CEO is making is only on an exception basis when they are worried about a particular thing. But because they said if the CEO has queries, but what if he doesn't? This actually should be done for every single, okay? And also, we must make sure that this is done for all 96, okay? Oh, there's a hand online. Okay, thanks. Okay, so it's very important to unpack that, and thanks for making sure we stick to it until you are clear, my lady. All right, online.
Hi, Freddie.
How are you, Adam?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
I'm also just still on the previous point, where the CEO is reviewing, right? I think the point that was trying to be made is that the CEO's review is weak in the sense that
may be weak.
Yeah, okay, may be weak, yes.
Yes, because we don't know what he's doing.
Yeah. May be weak in the sense that he's reviewing something that's already been manipulated already. So like he won't really find something if it's already been, already been adjusted or manipulated. So it's gonna match.
And I hear you, but and this is always my point. When you're looking at controls, guys, you always need to look at a control in isolation or a risk in isolation. So you can't take a cumulative effect. Remember, we raised concerns or risks at the database, that the database could be manipulated. Then we can't take that concern into account when we come to the review by saying, well, that data has been may have been manipulated. Then as a result, the CEO's review is useless. No, but remember, we are identifying process risk points to say if the concern that we had at the database was fully addressed by controls, then now the CEO is doing is using the correct data. Do you get what I'm saying? So be careful of not overly being punitive to the environment, because otherwise then we're not going to respond to the task. We're going to stick to one issue. Do you get what I'm saying? Issue being at the database level. But now move on from the database. Now, assuming the database, as much as we had risks that we've raised, assuming that now it's well catered and controlled with internal controls, then is there something wrong with what the CEO is doing? And what the issue with the CEO is that he's doing it on an exception. He's not the right person, or she's not the right person. And so it's who's the CEO again of Fodjan? You should know this. Huh? Oh yes, Aja. And then also, that's number 2. It's not the right person. Number 3 is the fact that what was my first? Exceptions, eh? The fact that they're doing it on an exceptional basis, not for all 96. Then the last one is we don't know the level of precision that we are doing this. Yes, we don't know the level of precision that they are doing this. Okay, does that make sense, Atang?
Yes, 100%. I hear you.
Good, thank you. Ora, go for it. Ora?
Yes, I'm unmuting. Oh, sorry. Isn't there a risk that some of the sales that have taken place may have not been recorded through the system? For example, maybe there was load shedding and then they did the whole writing down and didn't go through the system. And as a result, or maybe the franchisee themselves, they may decide, knowing that there is a database that actually gets checked and reconciled and sort of makes sales outside of the book, especially when it comes to
Absolutely.
it comes to cash sales that do not go through the EFT mechanism.
Absolutely. You are
Then,
spot on, Ora. That's the first point that we mentioned, to say input risk. Firstly, they could have not included some orders, especially the cash orders, and pocketed the cash. Who? The employees, number one, meaning they are also frauding the restaurant, or on instruction by the manager, not now pocketing it for themselves, but putting it in a little kitty for the restaurant. That's an intentional. Do you agree with me? So there's that input risk that we spoke about of orders not coming through the POS system. That was the first input risk that we spoke about, or orders coming into the POS but incomplete. Two beggars made to be one, or we order two beggars and then we realize that we forgot someone at home and we need to order a third beggar. But when we do a modification of the order, the modification does not get added to the POS. And it's those. So absolutely, Ora, you are quite right that those were the things that we mentioned from the beginning.
I wanted to add one last thing there.
Go for it.
In that case, is there a possibility that rather than reconciling the sales, but rather reconcile the inventory that you issue to the franchisee and apply a markup?
You are responding to the second component of the task. You're not in the first component of the task, because now you see you are using data to see how we can identify the issues. Are you with me?
Yeah.
You're not now discussing how franchisees could manipulate. The moment you get into that recommendation, no, you are in the second component of the task. And very valid point that you're making, Ora. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, which is where I want to go to next. There's one last question in the room, then I'm going into the second component to the task.
Okay, so I'm a bit confused with the cash orders.
Yeah.
Because it says the POS takes the food orders. So when you go
the POS takes
the food orders as well, right? So when you go into the restaurant, how would they know that you're paying with cash? So that
how would
they know that you would be paying with cash at the end of the meal.
Oh, they can ask you.
But
I've
at the
had
beginning,
so many
at the beginning,
waiters asking me, do you mind? Oh, you're saying they will only tell you at the end.
At the end, when you have to pay, is it cash or what?
But maybe they can, it's that point of then going into the data and deleting the transactions.
Okay, because I was like, the order is already on the system.
Yes.
So how would they change it when you
delete it?
use?
Yeah, it's by integrity now.
Okay.
Yes, the integrity risk. Thank you. Fantastic. Right. Now, still on first component of the task.
Yes. So now the question I have is the competency, right, to get the C. If I had missed, let's say on your next slide, the whole CEO story, now is that an automated BC? And also, is it a must that I need to identify what could go wrong in each and every bullet provided?
Well, but yeah, we'll get to the marking grid and unpack exactly what you needed to get a C. Okay, right. Second component of the task, guys, is the easier part. Funny enough, because now we've unpacked this we know exactly where it could go wrong, where it could be data could be manipulated. Well, then let's do data analytics to flag the restaurants that are cheating us, or the franchisees that are cheating us. I mean, the number of data analytics that you could do. For instance, you could go for every restaurant or for every franchisee, take adjustments as a percentage of the gross sales. And you do that per month so that you follow up on restaurants with higher adjustment percentages versus the gross amount relative to other restaurants, or relative to where there are spikes in the periods. So you look at those things. You could look at the data that has gone into the VAT 201 reports, because there you would have showed the sales multiplied by 15% to get to output tax. Or the franchisees will have done that. Is that report, if you pull that data of what is reported as revenue for the purpose of VAT, is it aligning to what is sitting in the gross sales for the purpose of reporting to you as Fodjan? Because if there are differences, then you know that they're either cheating SARS or they're cheating you. You could look at, remember, they're buying stock from us. They're buying all the seasoning, the sauces. If there are costs that we have in our own, not as a result of this POS system, but as a result of our own management of our own inventory and sales, if we've got them buying a lot, but they are not reporting enough sales, then we're like, guys, what are you doing with the sauce and the seasonings? It doesn't make sense that you're buying so much, but you only have such little revenue. Do you get what I'm saying? You could do gross margin markup percentages, because you've got purchases, you've got inventory opening, opening plus purchases minus closing, get cost of sales, that is a percentage of net or gross sales. You could look at salaries as a percentage of sales, because there needs to be a particular jaws that is being achieved. Otherwise, they are not going to be profitable. And then you need to investigate. Like, if in a case where a higher percentage of their salary is, their salary makes up a higher percentage of their gross sales, then you know there's an issue there, meaning they are not reporting enough revenue. Otherwise, they will be firing some of this redundant employees because they still want to make profit. You could look at the split between cash versus non-cash sales, because we said sales are, the cash sales becomes a problem, especially to confirm completeness of cash sales. So there are lots of data analytics you could use. My lady, you also mentioned the customer loyalty, to say, I mean, there is allocation of the points in respect of the purchases. If you use that data in the future, once this is implemented, and you get a developer to come in and give you the right data, you are allocating a lot of points, but you don't have sales. That doesn't make sense. You want to see if there is any trend that is out of line. There's a lot, guys. I mean, whatever the data analytics you came up with, you make them relevant to here. You do not dump anything that is theoretically prepared during the 5 days. If you do, it's going to be a problem. So let me pause there and just see, guys, is there a hand? Is there a question before I get to the marking grid? Yes, my lady, in the room.
No question on the second part.
Sorry?
No question on the second part. of the question of the task. There's no question on the second part of the task.
Okay.
Right. But I really want to go back to the first part. There's a question from Notabo, which I also am struggling with. She's asking if there is a what could go wrong and there is a control. Is it therefore an invalid point for this task? Since our task was to identify various ways they could understate sales figures of their restaurants. So, for example, if there is a what can go wrong, but there's also
good question, Matabo,
we still raise it. Yeah.
Well, and you know, this is where you always need to make sure you understand the task. If there's a what could go wrong, but there's an adequate control that addresses it. The question is, where is that control sitting? If it's sitting at the franchisees, absolutely still raise it, because management could override that control. Remember that we've got a fraud, an incentive risk here. Are you with me? But yes, if the control, the adequate control is sitting at Fodjan level, then you might not raise it because that area is controlled and by people that have no say, like the price. The pricing issue, it's a risk, a process risk point. However, because it's controlled centrally by Fodjan and they don't leave it to the people that are biased in this environment, then we don't raise it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Fodjan is
you have to just repeat.
So it all will also, like you said, now it also depends who at Fodjan is managing it. So it depends, like we were speaking about the invoicing clerk, the CEO. It also depends who at Fodjan is managing. Is it the software developer?
Absolutely, yes.
The analyst?
If it's a weaker control at Fodjan,
yes,
then it doesn't help. Absolutely, yes. It needs to be a strong control. Fantastic. Let's look at the marking grid, guys. Easy marking grid. Very, very easy. Yeah, the markers for this task were the gods, because they had your fate right in their hands, because it was not too descriptive. All what they need is for you to describe possible ways in which the franchisees may be able to understate sales. And they must be relevant to the scenario and the industry in context. It cannot just be theoretical. Possible ways in which the franchisees. My lady, you asked a relevant question to say, I mean, we raised a number of things, right? What if you missed 1, 2, 3? Would you not be competent? Absolutely not. Okay. But what you raised needs to, I guess, firstly be of enough depth and explanation as to why and how they could understate sales. Needs to be relevant to the scenario in context of the industry, etc. But also, one could ask how many? How many were they looking at? What is coverage? We'll come back. The second one, explain meaningful ways in which the available data can be analyzed to identify an understated sales. When I was sitting in December advising SAICA on how this task is going to be marked, I said we need to spend a lot of time on that word meaningful. Because what is meaningful? Ways in which the available data can be analyzed. We needed to guide as to what is meaningful, I guess. Makes use of multiple analysis techniques to triangulate findings. To triangulate, what do we mean by that? You need to be pulling data from the restaurant, maybe call it from the floor, from the database, maybe from the capturing, triangulate and reconcile this data. Like, we don't want to see you comparing. You see, remember, my lady, you were worried about, are we comparing A and A, I mean, of course, there's not going to be a difference. If you're just comparing A and A, you're actually doing nothing. Do you get what I'm saying? We need to, when we read your response, we need to see that you're comparing A, data from point A to point B to point C, so that indeed there could be some differences that we are being able to pick up. In analyzing the data, avoid excessive irrelevant points and dumping of theoretical data analysis. I call this negative marking. Do you agree this negative marking? Because now we're not now awarding you for just the right things. We're saying we're going to penalize you if you don't do the right things, if you do give us information that or points that are irrelevant or dumped. Proposes data analysis techniques involving data that the franchisor could reasonably have access to. Okay, could reasonably have access to. Are you with me? Now, given this, how many indicators do you guys think? Before we get into coverage at a line item, how many indicators do you guys think you needed to get to a C? Eh? 3. Any 3?
3 on the first part.
Which second part? No, but like look at the marking grid. When we get to the marking grid, do you agree C1 is component 1 of the task? C2 is component 2 of the task. C3 is component 2 of the task. C4 is component 3 of the task. Sorry, component 2 of the task. And C5 is component 2. So the component 1 of the task was C1. It is a gating one. You definitely need C1, right? You definitely need C2, C3, C4 before you become competent. C5, we negotiated it on the basis that we said you can go to town in terms of you don't have to limit yourself with what we currently have. So it's not, what do we call? It does not necessarily, it's not required to be competent, to demonstrate competence, but all the others are absolutely required to demonstrate competence. Am I making sense? But do you guys agree this left a lot of judgment in the hands of the marker as to whether the possible ways in which franchisees may be able to understate sales are either on the memo that we discussed, or the marker obviously applies judgment. The nice thing at Psyche is the fact that your script gets marked by 2 independent parties, and if they both disagree that those are possible ways, then you are doomed. Meaningful ways. What is meaningful? Triangulate. I guess that is very clear how to triangulate excessive irrelevant points. I hope now you guys know you should not dump. We discussed the C5. If you look at the high level indicators, discusses how potential customer loyalty scheme can be useful. C9 makes use of anticipated relationships between financial and non-financial data. Okay, this is where then now you start drawing relationships between things like customer satisfaction survey to the revenue numbers. Are you with me? Or the number of orders returned or canceled or adjustments, but not the financial element of it, but the qualitative attribute of it versus the financial element of it. Clearly links the data analysis that should be undertaken to potential ways of understating sales. Okay, and that was it. It was a very simple screencast. Is there a question online? Oh, yes, Philip,
Okay,
you've got a
thank you.
question.
Thank you, Mr. Fedi.
Yeah.
The question that I have now is that I think we agreed that customer loyalty was just a proposal.
Yes.
How could this be then coming in and sitting in an indicator with something that you're still proposing?
High level. You're
But
going over and
you're still
above.
proposing, because I think already my mind is set up in such a way that I don't need to link this information to what I'm given already.
Why not?
Because right now I'm dealing with his data that I have got.
What did the statement say? What is the statement? If necessary, due to the risk involved, I'm willing to do more.
I'm not getting that.
I'm willing to do more, as in, don't think only current. You can also project certain things that I can still implement going forward. Think out of the box.
Okay. Okay.
And that's why I'm saying also, high level does not mean you need to get it. Okay. Yes?
Yeah, just a quick question. Freddie, on the marking grid under communication skills.
Sorry?
On the marking grid under communication skills, there's a mark for
an indicator.
preparing appropriately constructed memo.
Yeah.
No way will we asked to do a memo for this question.
Oh,
So why?
probably it was then adjusted.
Okay, okay.
Maybe I used the wrong version of the.
All right.
Don't worry, it wouldn't have made you LC. Just not using a memo. Yeah, maybe I'm using an earlier version. Last question.
Hi, Fedi.
Hi.
So my question is on the marking grid and the information on the day. What I really want to understand is how I should apply my mind, or how I should think on the day of the exam. So if you see from point number C2 to C5, I'm assuming they're linked to task B, like how can we analyze the franchise restraints? So I'm trying to, in my mind, I'm questioning myself, how am I supposed to know, like how am I supposed to know on the day of the exam that I'm supposed to cover those points? Because from my understanding is C1 and C2, those were the requirements of the day, like describe the possible ways and explaining meaningful ways in which available data can be analyzed. I can see that C3 to C5, they are primary indicators, meaning to say I was supposed to cover that. How would have I known that I'm supposed to cover that, given the task on the screen on the exam day?
If you read C2 to C, let's say C4, let's leave out C5 because we spoke about it. C2 to C4 is exactly embedded in the task B. The fact that they went and split it out is irrelevant. As in, I'm not saying, it doesn't suggest that you should have spent more time on B than A. Not at all. It's just split out. But you need meaningful ways to do that, and don't and triangulate, and don't give us irrelevant information. How did you know you need to do that? You know that you're not supposed to.
Maybe to help me on that one, maybe you can and help me to understand, what do you mean by saying this is irrelevant point? So it's not meaningful.
So
because I'm assuming
remember,
I'm supposed.
Yeah. So remember when we did the reflection, there were certain things that we, like certain notes that we prepared on our slides. If you come and just drop that content, let's say of cats, and you dump them and say, this is my answer, that is exactly what not to do. Because then you are not responding to the task that you're finding there on the day, but you are just dumping your research. Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay, so in other words, you mean it's supposed to link to information on the day, like information given on the day.
Which is C2 and C1, saying it needs to be meaningful in this context. Do you get what I'm saying? So, and I want to, as a last point, okay. Seems like there's another question. Before I take that question, I want to say, guys, when you respond to the task, you focus on responding to the task. You will never know how the marking grid is looking like. And it should not bother you as to how it's going to look like. Do you get what I'm saying? You shouldn't be like, what? I must aim to get 2 indicators on this component, 3. You don't know how you're going to package the marking grid. Respond to the task, read the task sufficiently, understand it, unpack each element of it, and respond to it fully with adequate level of depth. Fully, meaning coverage, and with adequate level of depth. And then you leave the rest to the markers.
Betty, on the same point, sorry, I'm asking so many questions. So what do you mean when you say, okay, there's coverage and depth. So I want to know, what do you mean when you say depth? Like, what amount of information do you say this is depth?
Every statement that you make, you indicate why until you run out of the reasons.
Okay, thank you.
That's depth. Thank you, Raviro. I'm going to take one last question because then I'm 10 minutes over. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is, we're told that basically customers can either come into the store, right? Or there's a click and collect.
There's
a click
delivery,
and collect, so they can order on the app.
Yes.
So when they were speaking here, it seemed like it was more focused on the point of sale, but obviously the revenue that's going to the group is inclusive of both the orders that are happening on the app and those that are happening inside of the restaurant, right? So
when you say app, you mean app of the customer?
Yeah, so they can place orders for click and collect.
Yes, but remember, it still goes through the POS.
So was there a way that we could have, or would it have still been relevant to then include the, because either way, if you have information still on the app and you'll have information on the point of sale. So could that information on the app have come in as, I don't know, like a suggest, like a, because we're supposed to suggest ways in which they could basically identify where there's like an understatement example of.
I guess they just didn't explain how the information on the app gets transferred into the POS, because that's where then the risk point will sit, which you can raise, yes. Do you get what I'm saying? Yes. Because is it an automatic feeder, or is it once you have it on the app, then someone needs to come and still capture it on the POS? That was not clear on the day as to how it comes about.
But we were not limited to just.
No, you could raise it. Nothing wrong with raising it. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you. It was, and I mean, this kind of tasks, we've seen a lot of them from SAICA. A lot. And it's that task that usually throws candidates off. So you've got to make sure you're comfortable with these types of tasks. Data analytics, AI, internal controls, etc. Make sure. All right, just type in the chat box as to what's your takeaway from it. And then we give you, is it now 7 minutes break whilst Umu is connecting, and then we'll be back again. Thank you. Thank you, guys.